morning. Welcome to CONEXEC. We're in Lexington, Kentucky. This is a podcast for construction executives and aspiring construction executives. And I'm here today meeting with Brandon Berry from Wehr Constructors.
Yep.
And Brandon is a friend. I've known him for some time. And we're just going to kind of go through and talk about a few items. So first off, tell me about Wehr, who they are, describe your company.
So Wehr is a family-owned operation. It's actually run by my family, so the Berry family. My grandfather, I'm never really good with dates, but I can tell you that he came to Wehr in the 60s and started as an estimator. They were a very small company owned by the Wehrs. Kind of a miscellaneous hodgepodge of work, but mostly GC hard bid work. And so over time, he worked his way up, became part owner in the 80s, and bought the entire company shares out, I think sometime in the late 80s. Again, if I've got family members listening to this, I'm sure that they're going to be upset that I don't know the exact date, but I don't know what I had for dinner last night. So, but anyway, he ended up becoming the sole owner, and then the Wehr name, I guess was large enough or had done well enough that they didn't want to change it when the Berry family ended up buying out. But he retired right around 99-ish. And so then it was taken over by my dad, my Uncle Skip, and my Uncle Ed as three equal owners. Skip, as the oldest, retired about a year and a half ago, so it's now owned by just Dad and Ed, so Dale Berry and Edward Berry. And so, we're still a family business. Obviously, since the 60s, a lot is different about Wehr. We've started out just with the Louisville office. We now currently have an office in Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green, and Tampa, Florida. So we're starting to expand a little bit, have done the past several years. We are a faith-based firm. It's very important to us. It's not always the most popular way to be, I guess.
Especially today.
Especially right now. But even when Skip left, there was a reorganization of our management team at Wehr, and one of the tasks that we were given was to reorganize our business plan, reorganize our values, and just kind of restart and make sure that the newer generation of leaders at Wehr still bought in with the original values that the Berry family and the Wehrs had, and so faith was the number one value that we wanted to make sure that we highlighted and accentuated, and so that drives what we do. We focus mostly on healthcare work. We're starting to do a lot of higher education. Our Tampa office has a lot of healthcare work going. So wherever the markets take us, I know it kind of fluctuates, but that's generally what we're known for, and obviously we're trying to plan for the future. So
kind of tell me about your history individually. What how did you come in the company? Where you grew up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'd love to tell you that this has been a dream of mine since I was a little kid, but that would certainly not be accurate. When I was little, Dad used to take us into Wehr all the time, and we'd be running around the shop and stealing all of our guys' tools and things. We're 5 and 6. We thought all those things were cool. So we were always around Wehr, but I don't know. I thought I was going to be a golfer and that I would be making millions on TV every weekend and stuff, and naturally that ends for everybody at some point. But I was fortunate enough to be able to play golf at Eastern, which obviously is where you and I met, but ended up going the CM route there.
Why did you pick construction management? Because of your background, or you thought maybe it's the option, or?
I think if I'm honest, I think that I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I genuinely love my family. I love being around my family. We're an extremely tight-knit family, especially on the Berry side. So I thought, I don't know what I want to do, but I could certainly see myself doing whatever they do and just being around them. And I was very fortunate that it started to become something that I really liked, and I'm so glad that it happened the way that it did. I think God played a big part of that. But so that was really the initial reason. I actually had my brother, DJ, he went to UK for a few years, transferred to Eastern but stayed living here in town, so he was driving every day,
Mm-hmm.
and he was already going to school and doing the CM route. So it was another comfort that, like, hey, he can shepherd me, he can show me what I need to know, and so kind of just was a comfort feeling at first, and then luckily it grew to be something I loved.
So you played all 4 years golf at EKU?
Yeah, I actually redshirted 1 year. You know, on a golf team, you pretty much play 5 every week. So we had 10 people on the team. We had 7 freshmen come in my year. So like there was a lot of us, and you know, 7 for a 10-man roster. We were always trying to play for a spot, and so 2 of us decided our 4th year that we would redshirt. And so I came back for a 5th year, but so yes, I actually played 5, but you know.
So you still love golf?
I do. You know, I tell DJ whenever I first started at Wehr, he was talking to me about how lucky I was playing golf every day and all this stuff, and wait till you get in the real world. And you know, for some reason I thought golf was a job, and it was kind of turning into that. Like the first week that I was at work and I was staring out the window, I realized that golf was not a job. I probably should have hit a couple more 7-irons before deciding to hang it up. But
so how good of a golfer are you? I never asked you that question, so I thought.
I mean, I still, you know, it's funny. I still play pretty well. I think it's because I don't care as much. I think for whatever reason that's helped me. I mean, I'm a 0 right now on my handicap, so you know, it just depends on what's going on in life. More than anything.
How often do you play?
I haven't, like, I don't play that much anymore, except for like tournament golf.
Mm-hmm.
We actually live on the 3rd hole of Eagle Creek. So I live in Oldham County and drive to Lexington every day. And I live 2 houses down from my mom and dad, and so grew up on a golf course,
Mm-hmm.
got the opportunity to move back, and so we go out a lot still every night. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And they don't really care about golf, but they love seeing the deer and the turkeys and the rabbits and the squirrels, and so we go out a lot. But so I don't play as much as probably I'd like to, but
Mm-hmm.
You know, the older I get, the more it's less important to me to get to play golf. You know.
So okay, so you told us a history about Wehr, and so let me ask you, what was the most significant event that happened to Wehr that kind of changed, you know, was a game changer for you, changed the business model that you guys have?
You know, I could probably look at this in a couple ways. So you know, I've been around Wehr since I was a kid, but I started co-oping when I was in school, and I was hired full-time in 2009. We had been signatory with the Carpenters Union, with the Laborers Union, operators. You know, it was becoming increasingly more difficult to pay higher wages and scales with, you know, because the market tanked around 08 and 09,
Mm-hmm.
and so we were finding ourselves in a situation that.
And that's right when you came into
right
the
when I
industry.
came. So that's what I mean. I was honestly a little too immature to understand how important it was at the time, but we decided after 20, 30 years that we weren't going to re-sign, and we were hoping to, but we knew that there were some terms that we wanted to try to get worked out, and it just didn't work out. But we had a lot of our leadership, a lot of our field staff. In fact, most of our superintendents were signatory to either the Carpenters Union or the Laborers Union, and so we tried to be upfront and honest with them and say, look, it's becoming harder for owners to justify paying more for services just because, you know, of the union agreements and things, and so we want to make sure that we do what's in the best interest of of our owners, of our employees, and we've got to just get some common ground here. So we're letting you all know ahead of time that we're hoping to work this out. There's certainly a chance that it won't, and so we were trying to do right by the people.
Well, you know, the reality is that if you can't win work, then you don't have a business.
Right.
And the cost are driving, especially in 2008, 2009. It was, well, from 7 to 9. You know,
right.
Guys, everybody was in a bad situation.
Right.
You know?
And it's tough. I mean, we want to be fair to the employees, and we want to be able to pay people more. But at the same time, if that's at the risk of losing work, it's hard to pay people if you don't have the work.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so I say all that in that we ended up not being able to sign, and we were very worried about just the employees' families, you know, because that's health insurance, that's pensions, that's everything. But every single union employee that we had left the union and stayed with us. And so that was, the older I get, the more I appreciate that. That as I get a family, there's a lot more people that I'm working to do well by others. Something like that is a major deal. And for each one of them to leave the union that they were vested in and all this stuff and stay with Wehr, I see now more about what that said about my family, about Dad, Skip and Ed, Granddad.
Yeah, that's significant. I mean, they took a big risk on you guys, you know.
Yeah.
And that just shows that obviously they believed in you, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't me, but they believed in them, and you know, I can see now more that they've earned it. Meaning Dad, Skip, and Ed, they've done a lot, and they've been wonderful examples of the type of people that we need to be, not just what we need to do at work. So that's probably the biggest moment. There's a lot of just little things maybe.
What about the Florida thing? Because I always wondered every time, you know, why do you guys have an office in Florida?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I try to do it without going too much down a rabbit hole, but Humana Hospital was a really big client for us back in the 80s, and actually when Wehr kind of made a transition from smaller time, Dad, Skip, and Ed would have said that the biggest moment was when we got the Humana Tower that's in downtown Louisville, so the world headquarters there. That was a hard bid, and you know, we weren't able to bond it. And we thought we weren't going to be able to bid it. We were told, don't stop what you're doing. You put all this time and resource in. Even though you can't get a bond, go ahead and do it. We won the job, ran the job. It went extremely well. Obviously, it's one of the nicest buildings in downtown still. But my grandfather and Uncle Skip were the two PMs at Wehr that ran the job. And so from that point, they started taking us all over the country. And so there was a hospital in Tampa that another contractor was working on, and I think the owner fired him and asked us if we would come down there and finish it. And so we ended up hiring some local people. We finished that job. We got some more work while we were down there, and we stayed. I'm sure there was a formal business plan, but it was an opportunity through a long-term deal that it's still working, and that's one of the hottest markets in the country right now. I mean, it is booming there. So
John Gaver retired, right?
Yes.
And so who runs the office in Florida now?
So David Judd runs the office there. David,
I recognize that name. Is he from here?
Yeah, he came from Able.
Okay, that's where I know.
And I don't remember how many years he was there. David's a younger guy, is one of the most hardworking and talented people. Reminds me a lot of you, actually, just like you kind of hear his history, and he's just a really good person. He's made a lot of really, really good decisions, and same way we've been able to spend some time with him before he went down there to Florida. Worked a couple years, took over for John, and then we had a couple of senior PMs from Louisville that, as the market was picking up, we needed more help. We've been able to plug and play down there, and it's been vital to us doing what we've been doing.
Is that healthcare down there? Is that what you guys are still doing?
For us, it's all. I mean, I think. I'm going to get this wrong, but I know within like a 1 hour radius of our office, there's like 100 hospitals. I mean, so it's just CHS, HCA, LifePoint.
Well, you got all the old people there.
People get sick and they get older every day.
Everybody talks about retiring and going to, in Michigan, we should call it snowbirding, where they go down, you know. So, so is there any other significant events you can think of besides what you talked about?
You know, probably for me, running our Lexington office, you know, I've got several personal events, but I mean, just we'd worked in Lexington for 30 years, but we've never had an office here, and you know, the market was kind of driving us to think about making the move, and I was tasked or voluntold is kind of what I say. I thought it would be a good idea if we had an office here and just try to put a plan together, and I ended up being told, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and we think you should do it. And so probably our
beware what you wish for.
Yeah, that sounded great. But probably our first UK project, because we have been trying to break through and show them that we knew we could do what we needed to do. There's a lot of great subs, GCs, CMs here in town, We're not any better or worse. I just knew that there was a standard here that had to be set, and I thought we could do it. And we got our first job. I think we did a pretty good job, and now it's obviously led to I don't want to say long term, but we've had a lot of good luck there, and hopefully we'll have a lot more.
So you've been here for what, 5 years?
Yeah, I started coming actually. So 21C here in town, we were awarded that job, and my now father-in-law was the senior PM, and so I was the PM working for him. And we came down here in 2014 because it was 3 weeks before my son was born, and so I've been here since then. I mean, and I had been working around town, but never physically here. So yeah, it's been since around June of 14.
It's got to be interesting driving with your father-in-law back and forth every day for years.
It is. It is.
And I'll just leave it as that, right?
Well, he's. I mean, I'll tell anybody this. Whatever I thought that he was before I got to know him, he's a very, any father-in-law when you're dating someone, or that person, he obviously wasn't my father-in-law then, but scary and intimidating, and he's one of the best guys that I know, and he's a great teammate. And I had to learn day one that, like, if I had a bad day about anything, like, I would go home, and April would always figure out some way to, like, well, if you and Dad were having problems, it can't be his fault, so it's got to be yours, And I said, well, even if that's true, I don't really need to hear it, but so no,
that's an interesting dynamic there.
It is. It's been great. I work with my family, and then I married a girl who's so I got it on all sides here, and don't know if that's good or a bad thing.
So what are you guys doing to prepare for the future?
Well, we're in the midst of a change right now. When Skip left, there was a huge void in just.
What was his primary duty?
So the three of them were equal partners. Dale, who is my dad, is the CEO. Skip is the oldest. He was the president of Louisville operation and president of marketing, and then Ed was the president of Florida. And so, but it was still governed to where everything was, they met once a month and everything ran through the three of them. Skip was a person that has a lot of contacts. He knows a lot of people. He is a very service-oriented person, and throughout his life, you just don't realize what an impact somebody has on the people around them until they're gone. And he's not gone, but he's just not. We don't interact with him every day, and so more than anything, Skip always knew. He knows everybody. Just a lot of the goodwill that our family has built has been because of his service, generosity, and he was just a workaholic. And it's hard to fill that void. That's the best way to say it. So what are we doing to plan for the future? We're in the midst of really. I'm still learning what my role is here, and I mean I run an office, but we've gone from 3 people 2 years ago to 15 now in the office. We've got 55 people that technically right now, I mean with field staff it can fluctuate a little bit, but fall under the Lexington office. And so we're trying to establish right now, we took our core leadership team, our best project managers, so to speak, or I don't know that I was, but there's a bunch of us that were really good, people that I learned from. We've all moved into management roles, and so naturally now we're doing less project management, and we're having to train, we're having to teach, and do all of that, and keep up with a booming economy and a standard of work that is very difficult to achieve. So, like, I know that my job will hopefully lead into more long-term strategy, and I do have things that I'd like to accomplish, but right now I find myself more in a teaching mode and just trying to make sure that our team has the resources that they have to do the job.
You know what's funny about, like, you go to school, you get trained as a construction manager, you learn the technical aspects, and then you get to a point where those really, I won't say don't matter, but don't matter as much.
Right.
And then the things that do matter are things like strategic thinking and leadership and those things that most people think, that's not that important. And I've talked to some previous podcasts, and I'm a big believer in it, is that, I mean, employers are more, and I found this to be true, and I've seen the research to support it, employers are more concerned about soft skills than they are about the technical skills.
Yeah.
Because you can teach anybody to swing a hammer. I shouldn't say anybody, but you can teach a lot of people to swing a hammer, or you can teach a lot of people to put together a schedule. But it's much more difficult to teach them how to communicate effectively.
Yeah, and that's our job. I mean, I'm ashamed to say it, but I tried to opt into an online public speaking course when I was in school because I hated talking to people. I mean, and I don't mind it now, but it is something that is so valuable that I personally just didn't fixate on. It's my job to say, here's what Wehr stands for. I stand in front of an owner, I stand in front of a client and say, this is what we stand for, because we do. And we're going to give you our word. We're going to sign a piece of paper that says we're going to do all this stuff, but we're here to serve you. And that goes from the top all the way to the bottom. And what I've got to learn more every day is, for me to be able to honor that takes a lot of people, all the way down to the subcontractors, but the buck stops with us as the CM, GC, and it's hard for project managers a lot of times, new or inexperienced, when you're moving into that role, to understand how important your character and your integrity is, and just, so yes, being able to make a promise, follow through on it, it's really hard to find people that can do that effectively.
What I think is interesting, and hearing you talk about it, and this is something I preach to my folks all the time, is customer service is lost in construction.
Yeah.
And I think more and more the people that realize that, I was talking to David Dean a few weeks ago, and he indicated that too, is that that's what people want. People don't want the old school, relationship, adversarial relationship. They want to have a partnership, and obviously I know that that's you guys as a company, and that's kind of what you do. So do you guys have a 5-year strategic plan?
Yes, we've got a 1 year, a 2 year, and a 5 year, and really, it's been implemented over the past year. Or we've been starting the process of, we've looked at our short-term and long-term goals, and then the interim steps that we have to take to get there. And with all of us being in new roles, we have So I didn't really get to this a minute ago, but Dad and Ed are CEO and COO, and then they've got what they call is the EMT, is the executive management team that I'm a part of, and there's 6 of us there, and so we're all trying to fill our way out in our new roles and implement these goals or interim steps to get to the 5-year plan. And mostly it's about growth, developing PMs that can continue the character and the legacy, and really just trying to broaden our workload. It's easy to say that healthcare should be pretty it's a very difficult sector to be in because of how many rules and regulations.
Life safety and all that stuff. Yeah.
But it just it's I guess I'd say common sense that people are going to get sick. People are always going to need hospitals and healthcare. So you would think that's a good market to be in. But we're trying to say, well, if there's ever a lull in healthcare, we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. So how do we do that effectively? And we're trying to take steps to figure out ways to do that. So.
And that's interesting, because it's like, do you stay with what your core focus is? Do you go outside that? Do you offer new products? And that's a constant struggle. I think anybody who is in a management position or executive position with any kind of construction organization, that's what they think about all the time. How can I offer more services, or how can I bring new clients to the table?
Yeah.
What are some things you hope to achieve in your 5-year plan?
Well, again, I'll say personally, or I'll kind of stick to more of the Lexington aspect of it. I've found that there's always going to be more things I can do. There's always more work to get done. There's always emails to check and things to do. And for me personally, I have to always come back to my family. God is, that's what's most important to me. And I can't do anything very effectively if I don't keep that, and that's just a me thing. Because I've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy over the past several years trying to do right by work and my family. And when I say my family, there's like the Berry family that I feel an ownership to live up to whatever Granddad and Dad Skip and Ed have built. But I've learned I can't do that at the expense of my own family. Being a dad and being a husband, and I've wished that I could say that I always choose them over work, but things get in the way all the time, and so I have to try to reevaluate every day. I try to tell the people that work here, I hope to never ask you to have to make a decision between your family and work, but I want that to be the mission here, that like we serve a higher purpose, and it's not about the dollars. I mean, we have to make money. But if you forget that, then all this is for nothing, because we'll lose the clients. We won't be able to give owners what we say we are going to give them. So I really try to live a day at a time and try to let it just be, this is my focus for the day, and try to help out the people around here as best I can. And, too often I probably do that too much, because then I don't get anything done. But I try to not focus too much, other than I know I have to in my job, is looking a year, 2 years, and 5 years. But the more I do that, the more the things that are the most important to me in my life seem to suffer, and that's just a character defect of mine that So it's hard for me to answer other than just day at a time.
Now, I know you're a humble guy, and I know when I ask you this question it's going to be tough for you, but what skills and ability do you have, do you think, that helps the business? Because you're Barry, okay, but the fact is that just like I do with my own son, I'm not going to throw him in a position that he's going to fail. So obviously your father and your uncles had a belief in you. There's something they believed in you. They saw something in you. What is that has helped you not only survive but thrive here in Lexington?
I think that I don't know what I do well. I can tell you that I try to. I'm not going to say obsessed with it, but it's very important to me to try to keep my word. I know that to a fault I will take ownership of things that just, I try to look at what do I need to see in someone to be able to give them more responsibility, and that's the best way that I can answer. I wonder why they looked at me when I was 25, 26, 27, sent me to Lexington, allowed me to stay, and they've entrusted me with a lot of stuff, and I really don't know. I just know that I don't wait around for other people to solve any of the problems that run into us every day. I think that's what makes a good project manager, GC or CM. It's very easy for me to draw a line in the sand on a project and say, well, that's the architect's job or the engineer's job, or that's not my job. But going back to what you said, David Dean says they're looking for a team. We are a team, whether everybody wants to be or not, and if one party suffers, we all suffer. So I try to take ownership of that, and I think that I've tried to take ownership of everything that I've been blessed with up here and do the best that I can, and I'm not ashamed to ask for help when I need it. And I know that I'm inexperienced, but I'm willing, if I can ask for help from people that I respect, and if I can try to find people that show the character and the values that we want to have at Wehr, keep them here, and motivate them that it's not about the money. I'll take care of the money for you if you'll just do the right thing. That's worked so far, and but I tell Dad, and I don't talk to Uncle Ed as much as Dad, but just say, you find somebody that's better, bring them down here. I'll do everything I can to help them, but but other than that, I don't know. I don't mean to bring it back to this, but I think that I have been blessed. I've been very fortunate. I've got a lot of guys in the field that are fantastic and have really set the character of Wehr as what it is. Owners don't see me every day. They don't see the project managers usually every day. They see the people in the field. So I can sit up here and tell them whatever I want, and I can say, where is this and where is that, and here's what we're going to do. But they see the people in the field every day. They interact with them every day, and our reputation is made based on how they interact every day and the character that they have. So we are blessed with a really, really good team that I don't care if you're perfect at your job personally. Just I never want to get a call that someone made a choice about money or someone made a choice about taking the easy way when the hard way was there, or but the right choice was there. And I don't know that I've had too many of those. So
what is, and you bring up a very important topic. Those guys in the field have to show those values that you guys have. So, I walked in your front door here, and when you walk in your front door, you got a plaque behind the desk there, a Bible verse, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and kind of what do you think the values of Wehr is?
So, I think to your first point, finding the field staff that can represent you, that can represent Wehr and the values, it is a challenge, and that's something above all else that God has blessed me and Lexington and just Wehr in general with, is we have really high quality people. I don't know how other people do it. I've been blessed and cursed that my only experience has been with Wehr, and it's been with Dad, Skip, and Ed. But we have high character people, and most of our field staff starts young. Growing up with Wehr, to where after a couple years of somebody working in the field, busting their butt, working in the cold, the wet, early, late, you can tell who's here because they care and who's here so that they can get a check. And so what I have tried to do, at least, is when I find those people, I try to encourage them. I try to say, like, I'm noticing this, we are noticing this, and it means a lot. We really appreciate you. If you want to be with us, I'll make every opportunity available to you to further yourself, to better yourself. And we've been able to develop people that way. And the Bible verse, that goes back to some people caution us against it. I'm not going to say that we wear it on our foreheads everywhere we go, but to us, whether you're a person of faith or not, I think anybody who is entrusting their resources is going to pay us money and entrust us to do a service for them that is going to cost them something, needs to be able to trust us. And so you don't have to be a person of faith, but I think it can help to see, like, we are driven by values, and whether that's based on the Christian faith or just the words in a book or the words that we live by that says we're going to live our lives in a certain way. I hope that even if that doesn't resonate with you on the faith side of things, I hope that it does just on a personal level. And so we were tasked in the business plan, how can we carry on the legacy that Granddad built, because he passed away a couple years ago, and honor Skip, honor the Berry family. And so we had our list of values, and we did the play on words, the we're faithful, we're fun, we're family, we're this.
Yeah.
And so, but it was intentional that we're faithful was first. And so we said, let's pick out a scripture that we feel like best represents our faith and the Berry family. And by that, I'm not meaning DJ and I'm meaning my dad and Skip and Ed. And so again, I wish I could quote it to you, but basically the first Corinthians 3:10 and 11 talks about building upon a foundation. By the grace in which God gave me, I've laid the strongest foundation, and it's a reference to Jesus Christ as being the strongest foundation that we can lay our lives on. And builders, faith, it just kind of like we were doing some research, and the minute we read it out loud, it was like, that's it. Mm-hmm. And so we put it as a signature line on the bottom of our emails. And as I said, I don't know if it's cost us work, but I know that my faith is that I'm not living for this world,
Well, and it all comes to what you're, for, because I've been highly criticized also, because my vision, the vision statement for my company is really simple, and kind of going back to the vision and mission. I have a consultant that works with me, a leadership consultant. He's a retired colonel, full board colonel, and he said, when we're looking at our mission and our vision, he says, well, that mission is what you do. That vision is why you do it. Yeah. So, because, I know vision and mission gets mixed up in everything. So I started thinking about that, and I said, okay, well, what do we do? What is our mission? Well, our mission is using our Christian values, we make project administration and management easy. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Now, why do we do it? That's a much more complicated thing. Yeah. And so we struggle because you're not going to hire everybody nor should we hire everybody that's a Christian, Right. I mean, God surrounded himself with tax collectors and And if the IRS is listening, I'm not saying anything about you, but so don't audit me. Yeah. The fact is that we're not commanded just to hang out with people that are like us.
Yeah.
So, but I also felt a strong desire to, like you guys, say what we're all about. And our vision statement for ACE is we're in the business of building the kingdom. You know, BBK, what we call it. You know, and truly that's what it's about. You know, of course you got to have a good business model. Building is what we do, and kingdom is what we're all about.
Yeah.
And I've been highly criticized about that. We have people who are agnostic and atheists within the company. One of them was actually on my management team, my executive management team. But that's okay because he still respects where it comes from.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy into the fact. I am not telling him, hey, you got to believe in God.
Right. Same.
But he's still going to buy in that vision. And I'm inspired. And honestly, I was really inspired by you guys. And the reason I was inspired by you guys is because I found out one thing that you guys probably don't know this, but when my first year at EKU, I have found out that when you guys have a meeting, you start it with a prayer.
Yeah, I do.
And that actually made a really big impact on me. And I won't say I've stolen them, but I'm sure you guys would be willing to share it. But when we have a company meeting and we eat, or we have a company meeting, we always pray before it. And I thought that was an incredible thing. And you guys have kind of inspired me to kind of take my faith and say, I'm going to live out my faith in my everyday lives.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's something that you guys really do well, and I was very impressed with.
Well, it's nice to hear that. I mean, we, we're the same way. I think that, in this day and time, it's not always easy to do that. But it's amazing that I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it, but I try to pray. Something that's just always been instilled in me. But I always say, like, you don't have to do this if you're not comfortable with it. Feel free. We can step outside. Anybody. But how many people come up and say, I really appreciated that you bless the food or that you pray before meetings, and it's more than Christian faith. Like, as I said, we want to have a personal level interaction with our clients that says you can trust us because we live by a certain character.
There's a code.
There is a code, yeah. And I mean, you don't have to believe in Jesus for that, but you do have to tell the truth, do what you say you're going to do, and be upfront and be honest, or you're not going to work here.
And the funny thing about it is those seem so simple.
but
it's not that simple,
not.
Yeah.
And
if you keeping your word, gosh, man, we're in an industry that is so tough to get people to keep their word. Really. So kind of let's go into like what do you think were your 5 biggest successes, or 3 to 5 biggest successes in your career, personally, professionally, and what do you think your 3 to 5 biggest failures? Because some people don't like the word failure. I think failure is probably one of the best things that could ever happen to you because it helps you grow. But if you had to say what would you say the 3 to 5 of the greatest successes and failures were for you?
Yeah, I find myself thinking about, like, if I go play around the golf, ask me what my best shot was, I have a really hard time telling you. Ask me what my worst shot was, and I can recall it like that. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm very similar to what you just said, and that I feel like I learn more from screwing up than I do from getting it right. Some of the moments that stand out to me, I guess I'm finding because when I'm hiring new people or I'm training, I find myself recounting what's worked for me. I think that every person has to operate based on what their style is and how they're comfortable. Because the most important thing, you're leading men and women, you're chairing meetings, you're the leader in the room almost every time you go somewhere. So you have to be comfortable in your own skin. I remember Nick Fears, who's on the EMT team with us and is one of the sharpest, just one of the sharpest dudes that I've ever met, and I got to learn from him. I remember going to a hospital, and I was his assistant PM, and I was just, following him around, trying to learn, trying to do all this. The day that he handed me the drawings and specs and said, I'm not going to Somerset again, it's all yours. And I was petrified. I mean, I couldn't believe what he was saying, but it was like, I believe you can do this, and I'm not going to bail you out, so go do it. And that was a moment that I was scared to death, but I know that was the best thing for me to grow. I'm sure I butchered everything up for the next couple months, but I did my best. I think at 21C, that was a game-changing moment probably for me. Looking back on it, I struggled a lot with that whole taking personal ownership of things when one person is not going to be able to build a project. You can't handle everything, and that's taken me time to learn because I felt like if there was a problem, I had to solve it. And there were a lot of problems on that job. You're taking 4 buildings that are independent and trying to turn them into one structure, and everything looks like it's going to fall over every 10 seconds. And but we were really proud of what we accomplished. I learned a lot. I worked for my father-in-law for 2 years and became extremely close to him. I still am because of that. And it was a challenge, probably for him too, just learning different styles. So I would say just what I learned and the people in the field that grew and that I was able to become friends with more than anything. Then I can probably focus more too just on challenges. Being young, and I'm less young. I'm getting older.
Well, you're not young anymore.
No.
You got gray hair.
So I got more than my dad does, and then my brother points it out to me every day. But it's so difficult when you take ownership of everything. I'm sure it's a good character to have. I mean, it's what I look for in people. I want people that want to see a problem and go fix it. I don't want people to sit around and say it's your job to go do it. But personality clashes, and just sometimes you give all you can and it's not enough. And not saying names or pointing anything out, but I can always define failures by people that I have failed, or that I assume if something didn't go 100% perfect that I failed. And sometimes it's just personality. Sometimes it's just there's a number of things. But I'm coming to realize that that attitude of it's my job to fix every problem. You gotta keep that mindset. I've learned to keep that mindset, but understand my limitations to where I don't overpromise or get ourselves in a situation that we can't do what we want to do. And and probably lastly, we've been blessed very much to grow. We've got a lot of work up here, and I'm learning, not growing too fast, but I'm getting kind of like anything else. I'm learning by mistakes or things not working, how to run an office, how to run a business, how to motivate people. So it's kind of a daily thing.
So you've had a chance to see different levels, because growing up in the business, I mean, and then going all the way, and I think that's significant, by the way, being a part of something for a long period of time. It wasn't like, you're 30 years old and somebody hands you keys to it and say, hey, go run this. It was a slow, methodical, humbling probably experience.
Yeah.
But if you were to give somebody advice, somebody who, because this podcast is not just for those experienced people, it's also for people who aspire to be that. What advice would you give to somebody that says, hey, listen, I want to be a construction executive someday? And I say construction executive because I think it's different than other industries. So what advice would you give to somebody like that?
I think the first thing is you almost just have to have a spirit of hard work. Maybe not. I don't know how other people see me, and I won't act like. I think I've had a lot of people that have come into my life that I value a whole lot that have told me it's none of your business what other people think about you, and that's been because some people, and I'm one of them, have to have this. I need to be liked, or I think we're all guilty of that a little bit, I certainly am. But hard work is extremely important because that's the first thing that I see is if someone moves up, I see someone who doesn't look at what time it is and they're walking out the door at 3:30. I don't want you to be here until 9 o'clock at night. I want you to have a family life, but I want this to be about, who you are, not what you do. And so I think having a spirit of hard work while you're here at work is very important to me. I think that being someone who is not afraid to make a decision, you always have to be able, when asked, to give an explanation. So I'm never gonna get you in trouble by making a decision that goes wrong, as long as you have sound judgment in why you made the decision that you made. So if I ask you if something failed, I'm not gonna get mad at you unless I ask you, why did you make this call, and you can't tell me, or the reasoning is not, So I want people to be able to make a decision, because in our industry, schedule is everything. Time is money. Time is the most important to us, to the client. So you have to be able to assess a situation and make a decision and be okay with it being wrong and learn from it. And I think just those things. And lastly, think teamwork, because I'm learning every day that if there's 500 people on a job site, you're only as good as the person that puts the PPE on, that ties off to the roof, because one person can make everybody look bad and can derail you. You may be skyrocketing up some kind of ladder and everything's going great. Somebody falls off a roof on your job and it goes on your record. I mean, it's one of these things that, like, you're only as good as the people that you have around you. So having a servant leadership type mindset, I think those are important. So, and I don't know if that works for everybody. That's what I notice. And so when I see those either qualities, characteristics in people that work here at Wehr, that's when I notice and try to seek them out.
So what's the future of Wehr?
It's a wonderful question. We're a family-owned business, and with Dad and Ed now, I know that Ed doesn't have any children that work at Wehr. Dad does. So DJ runs our Louisville office, and obviously we would love for the family business piece to stay a part of it. I learn more every day that there's a lot more qualified and capable people than me, and I don't ever want to be someone that's accused of being given what I've been given because of my name or because of anything else. I can't help that. I mean, I don't apologize for it, because I come from a line of really, really good quality people on both sides of my family, and so I'm never going to apologize for that. God put me where He did, and I'm sure He had a reason for it. If it's not a family business, then there are so many good people at Wehr that, as I said, are extremely capable. I'm humbled to be on that leadership team, on the EMT team at Wehr, because whatever I might have thought about, one day I want to own Wehr, I want to do this, there's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of families, a lot of children, a lot of people that rely upon a paycheck that comes from us. And when you think about it in those terms, we're putting food on the table for a lot of people. So as long as there's somebody that can maintain the core values of Wehr, we'll be fine. And I hope that I'm a part of that. We're trying to make sure, as I said, kind of future-proof. We don't know what markets are going to be hot 5-10 years from now. So maybe what was great for us in the 80s and 90s, when healthcare was enough to keep the ship running, it may not be in the future. So we just need to be able to show, more than anything, that we can do all types of work. I think, I could sit here and argue, if you can do healthcare, if you can operate inside an active hospital while surgeries and operations are going on and minimize any interruption, you can do anything. But I know that you have to be able to sell yourself, that we can build a stadium, we can build a school, we can build whatever. So trying to make sure that we have resumes on file that shows that we can keep up with those who can. And, as I said, I try to live a day at a time, and we'll see what happens.
I didn't ask you this, but what is, and you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but what do you guys do revenue a year?
If you look at a 10, 20-year forecast, it's anywhere from 80 to 120 million a year. But again, that can fluctuate. We just opened the Bowling Green office about a year or so ago, and so we're trying to kind of maintain some speed there. Lexington's doing great, Louisville's doing great. So one of our goals is to be able to expand. We don't want to grow to kind of get too big for what we can maintain. I know one of the things that Dad, Skip, and Ed were very proud about, and they should have been, is that in 2009 they didn't fire anyone. Like, we didn't have to lay off anyone. That's what I mean. But so I mean, it was we took a lot of losses for a couple of years, but we rode the ship, and so. You know, we've got to be able to do more work because we want to grow and expand, but we don't want to get too big that we have to compromise those types of things down the road. So.
Well, I will say something that you said before. I think it's harder for you than it was probably for your father, and this is why I'm going to say this. Okay,
he'll disagree.
So this is why I'm going to say this is because you have a standard to live up to, and that's difficult. You know, and I think about for my own son what that means, because everybody looks at your dad and looks at you and compares, and you know, good, bad, or indifferent. That's the reality, and you know, it's hard for the son to, you know, I always think of George W. Bush, because I was at Camp David during the time he was president, and he said one of the hardest things it is to just live up to expectations of your father and everybody who knows your father. You know, and George H. Bush was a good man, you know, accomplished a lot in his life, and from what I know, your father, the same thing there. You know, he's a good man, and that's hard. And I tell my son all the time that you don't have to be like me, because my son's an introvert. I'm obviously not.
I'm not either.
So that's, but you don't have to be an extrovert in order to be successful or in order to be a leader. You don't have to be. It's just there's many other things you can. So different types of leaders.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I just want be hard for me to, you know, kind of go through the history and stuff and not touch on that. That like I've been very blessed, and I know DJ would say the same thing. I live 2 houses down from Dad. Live with him, work with him, work in the same office as my father-in-law. You know, we ride together all the time. I'm very fortunate that my dad is one of, if not my best friends, and knows everything about me, knows the best and the worst. You know, he's been very clear from the first day I interviewed. I don't know how much, but I came in and interviewed with Skip and Ed, and he wouldn't be a part of it. And he just said, like, I'm not going to oversee any projects that you're on. It's going to be you. You're going to do your thing, and I'm not going to be a part of it. And the same for DJ. We couldn't have a better example. I already see my son. He's 5, and he don't want to listen to if I tell him how to hit a baseball. You know, no, Dad, I can do it. I know how to. You know, he's 5. I'm thinking, boy, this is going to be a long 18 years. But like Dad is just, he's a great example of a servant leader. He has his quirks like anybody, and I'm sure that Cooper would say that I've got mine like anybody when he's old enough to recognize them. But like I come to appreciate him more so much, and Skip and Ed the same way. We've had fantastic servant leaders that we've been able to watch, and you know, I don't know if I was watching, but I'm recognizing more now in the choices that I make every day that I've seen them do it. And what I maybe used to think of, if I was ever in charge of anything, I wouldn't do it that way. I'm coming to see myself making a lot of the same calls, and so I'm very blessed that we're as close as we are, and that goes for my father-in-law too, because I'm just extremely lucky. But I'm also like, I'm trying my best, and if I fail, then I fail, but it'll be because God's got something else for me, and I'm not gonna try not to live in a world anymore where if I don't live up to an expectation, it's not because I didn't try. You know, I'm not going to work 80 hours a week, 120 hours a week just to prove I'm something that I may not be. So I'm very grateful to Dad for instilling that in me and Mom, and certainly my wife. She's grown up in a Wehr family too, and so she understands it. She knows the difficulties, and she's been very lenient and tolerant and patient with a lot of the growing pains that I've had, and that's, you just get lucky. You know, I don't have anybody to thank except for God and just luck for that. So I need to make sure I said that.
And that's you know, if you can make the family thing work, and most people would say business and family doesn't work, but if you can make it work, I'd have to say one of my greatest joys is having 3 of my 4 children work in the company. And actually I had all 4, but my oldest daughter is living in California now. So she can't work with the company, but it can be a great thing, you know.
It's got its difficulties, but like the fact is, I don't go 2 months at a time without seeing or talking to and that goes for my uncles, my brother, my dad, my father, like, and that goes back to I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I still feel the same way. Like the fact that I get to be around them every day is a blessing in and of itself, and like I know a lot of people don't get that. Now it's like it's not all butterflies and rainbows, you know. Because when you fight or you're having difficulties, you take them home with you, and then it's harder to get rid of them. But, you know, we've made it work so far.
So we're going to do what they call the speed round at the very end. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to give you different topics, and I'm going to say from 1 to 10, how important do you think this is in construction?
Okay.
And into your business itself.
1 being not important, 10
1 being not that important, 10 being really important. So,
okay.
And you can elaborate if you like, or you can just give me a number.
Okay.
So, but you have to give me a number.
Got
so, it. Okay. So, from 1 to 10, scheduling.
10.
Estimating.
7.
Accounting.
10.
Contract administration.
8.5.
Okay. Selling work.
9.
And leadership.
Hate to be a 10 guy every time, but 10. Yeah. I mean, but everybody has their own style with each of those things, and I've not made those a priority a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I get, and when I see struggles on a project, some of the things that should be 10s on that list, if I find that I've really numbered them a 3 and they should have been a 10, that's why we're struggling. So,
and some of them lead it like it's like, well, everything ultimately leads to leadership, you know.
Yeah.
And so if you can fix leadership, that's the root cause, then you can fix probably scheduling issues you have, you know. So there's a lot of links between those. So it's unfair for me to make you do that, but that's my fun thing.
No, yeah, and I
give people a squirm, you know.
I want to like, so it's kind of funny. The estimating part of it is, I remember estimating at Eastern used to drive me crazy because it was like it's one of the few times that there's not a right answer. It's all math, but 2 + 2 does not always equal 4, and the right answer is not always right. And you know, but we have estimators at Wehr. And, you know, when that's what you do every day, it's so funny. I laugh with them all the time. They're like, it's not an exact science. One of our guys Chris, is fantastic. He goes and speaks to people a lot, and he just says it's not exactimating. And, you know, we've got guys in here that, you know, have been doing this 30 years. They can look at an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and just kind of give them one of these thumbs over and say, $200 a square foot. And like, then there's people that the estimators will work 2 weeks on it and be at $202 a square foot. You know, so it's just funny that I have 2 different pictures in my head of a person that takes 2 weeks to do something and a person that can do it in 10 minutes. And you know, so
there's definitely an art there.
There is, and it's extremely important. But you know, it's just the context of everything.
No, understood. Well, I just want to give you an opportunity to say have any last comments about anything, and before we kind of close it out.
Well, I'm very appreciative of being able to do this. I think it's cool. I listen to podcasts where I'm in the car 3 hours a day, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. But to my family, I'm hoping that they'll listen to this. But you know,
they're probably asleep by now.
Probably so, or they're saying it's full of crap on the other. But I'm very fortunate with everything at work that's been done, and everybody that I work with, because you know, it's like when you're a project manager on a job, it's only as good as every subcontractor and every employee that you have, and it's the same thing here. And I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I think that this is it's a really cool thing. You know, you came to my office and you kind of gave a kind of an educational update about scheduling and estimating and things. Like, you're doing a fantastic service for the industry. I think what you did at EKU was absolutely amazing, and it's been unreal how the CM program there has just exploded. But I think it's obvious what you're doing in your industry is fantastic. You've helped us. You know, I'll kind of give you a shout out here that on the scheduling side of things. You know, you're helping us with a $40 million project, and you and your team have been fantastic. And so I think it's really cool what you're doing, what you've done for me, what you're doing for everybody locally, and so thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and on a personal note, I mean, you know, obviously I consider you a friend, but when I really say that your guys' organization and what you guys put here together was a big inspiration to me to do what I felt like I wanted to do. Didn't know how to do it, and you guys showed me that practical aspect of it, and that's a significant thing. And I'm glad there's people out there doing that stuff, and says a lot about you guys and your company, and I wish you guys success. And so on CONEXEC, our next time we're meeting with CONEXEC, Jeff Zellin from Davis Elliott will be meeting with us, and we'll be talking with him for about an hour. See you next time.